Brock Lesnar gets the best of Bobby Lashley again. Are we gearing towards Lashley Lesnar 3 at WrestleMania this time? We're going to talk about that in a bit and everything else that's happened this past week. So stay tuned. This is WrestleXtra. What's up, people? It's your boy Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. I'm alongside Gerard today, the professor himself, commentary team, award-winning commentator, part of a great tag team. Gerard, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. We're a man short today, guys, as if you haven't told already.
Right.
Dazzle has some other commitments he needs to attend to, but we will still bring you the best of Black wrestling this week, as we always do, right here at WrstlXtra. And it's pretty good timing we made the addition of Gerard to the team, because I would have been alone this week, or we would have had to cancel the show. So it's always great to have you, man.
Man, it is always good to be here. It has been a crazy week in the world of wrestling. I can't wait to get into it. And yeah, you were right. Did win an award over the weekend for commentary team of the year for the third consecutive year, which is equally crazy. So yeah, exciting times, fun times, and we're gonna have a whole lot of fun today. I can't wait to get into this topic today.
Yeah. Well done to you and your commentary partner. It's always good to kind of see, not just winning it, but like you said, sustained achievement. 3 years in a row is no small feat. But on the topic of threes, we're heading towards Lashley and Lesnar 3. It looks just like it's going to happen. Obviously, last night on Raw, we had the main event segment, which was for the United States Championship. Lashley going up against Austin Theory. Very kind of rushed. I think it got to a point during that Raw 30 show where everything became rushed, and as we know, some things got removed completely. And it came to the point where Brock Lesnar reared his head and just destroyed everyone in the match. An F5 to Lashley, an almost perfect F5 to Austin Theory right on top of Lashley, which was a 3 count, and he defended his title. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know where this is probably heading. Lashley Lesnar 3, Gerard, we assume it's going to be at WrestleMania. What's your thoughts on it?
It's funny because this time last week we were predicting what that Lashley Austin Theory match would look like and how the Hurt Business would be involved. Yeah. And boy, were we wrong. I just knew it was going to lead somewhere toward that. I did not see Brock Lesnar coming at all. So as soon as he came through, I was like, here we go again. And part of me was concerned because I'm like, it seems as though Brock is always getting the best of Lashley. But if my memory serves me correctly, we're actually even in terms of match results. Lashley won at Royal Rumble last year. Lesnar, even though Lashley dominated, Lesnar got the 3 count at Crown Jewel. And so now we'll have the rubber match, which it obviously seems too rushed to happen at the Royal Rumble. So it seems like it's a WrestleMania match if somehow you can keep these two apart between now and WrestleMania. I'm somewhat shocked, but I guess it's the only way that it made sense to keep the belt on Theory and have Lashley lose without losing, if that makes sense. So I mean, if we're going to have big marquee matches, this is a big marquee match for Lashley, for Lesnar. It's never happened at Mania before. I'm good with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that. My line of thought was when this was made a non-disqualification match, I was like, okay. But my head still didn't kind of go towards Lashley and Lesnar. I think with the WWE 2K game promotion and that just coming out in recent days, I actually thought it was going to be John Cena that rears his head somehow, comes out and does something, and obviously that could then later on set up the alleged Roman Austin Theory versus John Cena WrestleMania match. So that's where I was going towards until Raw was happening. I think maybe the segment also before the main event where Bobby Lashley said that it was Brock Lesnar that cost me my US championship. The minute he said Brock Lesnar, the penny dropped, and I said, "Yeah, is it Lesnar's gonna come out? Surely Lesnar's coming out." And yeah, it was Lesnar, and it cost him. And yeah, I mean, it's a very big match. This is a WrestleMania match, although you know there's no title on the line.
Right.
Like you said, they're equal in their matchup so far, one apiece. So this is also the rubber match.
Yeah.
And you know, I think out of Crown Jewel, you know, I think I was telling you last week that I'm going to WrestleMania, and out of Crown Jewel, I told my brother that's coming that who is, you know, he hasn't watched wrestling since he was proper a kid, like care for it at all. But he obviously knows Lashley, massive guy, Lesnar, absolute beast. Like I told him then, like it's one apiece in this series. It looks like at Mania we're getting this match, and he was like, and I was able to almost confirm that to him today. Yep, we're getting this match. Like, so yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. But with these two, I don't know how you feel. Their bouts so far, like, have you been entertained by them?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the first match was really kind of marred by, you know, Lashley being the bad guy champ and needing Roman's help to get the win.
Definitely.
The second match, you know, I thought saw the most dominant performance from Lashley we had seen. You know, in just he literally ragdolled Brock Lesnar the whole match, and Lesnar caught kind of this easy sneak pin. So to me, I think the Mania match has the chance to be the match that we've really been looking for.
Yeah.
You know, the match where they both go all in. I'm hoping that there won't be a need for outside interference from anybody, and we finally figure out who the better man is with this. But I think they've got enough time between now and then to really build something that is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I do think there's always this thing when, you know, there's a bit of a series coming up. You always wonder to yourself, are these two saving themselves for later on down the line? They're not giving us everything. And yeah, you said, like you say, the first match was Roman Reigns. And I feel like after years of waiting for Lesnar versus Lashley, that first match just really, you know, I think it kind of killed the entire Rumble pay-per-view. If I, you know, that was like was that the first match on the card?
No, it was in the middle of the card though.
Okay,
it was in the middle. Yeah,
it kind of ruined the whole. You know, it was one of many things on that card which just didn't really come to fruition. And then Crown Jewel was rather confusing, like you said, with Bobby kind of dominating and Lesnar just getting a sneak win. So this is the match. It's now, I guess, do we say, what are they fighting over? You said, can they have enough to kind of keep them away from each other? I think they will, because, you know, Lesnar's not on TV every week anyway.
Sure.
But storyline wise, do you see this going any particular way?
It's hard to tell right now, though it seems to make sense that Lashley comes out of this as the winner. There's a part of me that's also wondering, does Lashley come out of this somehow with the Hurt Business actually making their way? And I don't know. This could turn into a no DQ, no holds barred kind of situation where this is where we see the Hurt Business finally show up in a big way. And I think if that happens for Lashley, it does a couple of things. One, it establishes dominance. Two, we finally get the Hurt Business. And three, it's much different than when the prevailing storyline was, will Roman and Paul Heyman get back together? That was kind of the storyline that was alongside Brock versus Bobby Lashley. So I think there's a lot of things that could happen with this. I think if they are saving this for Mania, which probably they are, then they've got to make it big. This is a match that doesn't need a title. Brock Lesnar is Brock Lesnar. Bobby Lashley's Bobby Lashley. They're mastodons. Getting to fight each other on that grand of a scale, they're going to make it count. So I think the way I see it, I think it goes the way of Lashley, but these two nearly kill each other before it does.
Do you see it being, you mentioned the Hurt Business, and I'm just thinking, like personally, I don't mind it, but if the Hurt Business are to kind of get involved in a match with Brock Lesnar, if it is some type of non-disqualification match, does that again maybe mar the win? You know, if there is a win.
I don't think so, because the Roman side was Roman was kind of bigger than all of them at the time. And so Roman coming in to really, again, it was like an alternate storyline that was happening that really had nothing to do with Bobby Lashley. That had more to do with Brock than Lashley. I think this one, it's something we're anticipating. And if they take out Lesnar, they automatically look super strong as a unit, you know, since Lesnar can pretty much go through everybody. So I think it wouldn't take away from it too much. It just really depends on how it's done. And maybe it's one of those scenarios where they do it and Lashley doesn't know. And then Lashley finally realizes that they did it. And he goes, okay, all right, I'm in, because this is the win I've been wanting my whole career. So
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of ways to go with it. I don't think it needs a title, but I do think it needs to be something brutal. It's got to be
I
brutal.
agree.
Yeah. I mean, like, bring back Hell in a Cell for this.
I
Like,
agree.
this,
That's just what I was gonna say.
yeah, that right there, we would know for sure we're gonna see some carnage. That's got to happen.
Yeah, I was literally just gonna say I want this to be a Hell in a Cell match.
Mm-hmm.
Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania with these two inside, and just literally, I don't know how long it'll last, 10, 15 minutes. Just let them absolutely brutalize each other.
Absolutely.
Literally the opposite of Hollywood, like
Right.
right there in the middle of the
Right.
ring.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think that it's definitely, you know, it's. I mean, I see. I was about to say it's the only match announced. They haven't announced it. We just
Right.
know we're going.
We're already there.
Yeah, exactly. But it's literally like a one of a kind match. Same way what we're saying. If we got Roman versus The Rock, it really probably doesn't need a title.
Right.
It is that kind of big marquee match that, you know, with 2 nights of Mania, you know, if this wasn't a title, if it was a title match, it would main event one of them for sure. This could open a show. This could be right in the middle of the show. Like, it commands its own respect, especially if they're putting such a stipulation like a Hell in a Cell on it. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I guess the prospect of being there as well. But yeah, I think Bobby Lashley has to win. That's non-negotiable.
He has to.
And I'm just kind of curious as to, will Lesnar do the job, you know, clean as a whistle for him, basically?
Yeah, I wonder that. And there's a part of me that's thinking, what are all of the things that are going to lead up to this? Because in a world that hates long-term storytelling, we've actually been getting that with this, right?
Yeah,
they've spread this match out. They spread the interactions out. I do think that Lesnar somehow will cost Lashley the Rumble this weekend. Whether he just comes in to throw him out, or he distracts him, or even ends up being an entrant, which I don't want to see him as an entrant. But some kind of way, I think he's going to work his way into that. I think he's just going to do all he can to make life miserable for Bobby Lashley in these next few months, such that it can't be a regular match. I think, to your point, it's got to be Hell in a Cell or some brutality that we maybe haven't even considered before. You know, I don't want a fight pit match, although that'd be kind of cool. I need Hell in a Cell. But fight pit, I mean, obviously we know where they could go with that. But yeah, they've got places to go, and they need to exercise those places for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, especially on the lead up to WrestleMania, they invest a lot more in things like vignettes as well, especially where the likes of Lesnar, he's not going to be there week on week. Like, I would love a vignette, right, where like Lashley is like in the woods, looking like literally hunting for Lesnar while Lesnar's doing his business, killing his cows and all of that kind of stuff. Like, and maybe they even have a little scrap in the woods, like if they could film something like that, like just little kind of beats that would, you know, make us be ready, even because we're not going to see these guys kind of go at it weeks on weeks before WrestleMania. So we do need kind of, you know, checkpoints in between. But yeah, I think this is, you know, it's really good, and hopefully we get the right result from these two guys.
Absolutely.
But moving on from
Mhm.
these two alphas, let's talk about the alpha of the women's division,
Mhm.
the Raw Women's Division, Bianca Belair,
Mhm.
as she's going into Royal Rumble this weekend. She's got Alexa Bliss
Yes.
defending the title against Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss has reverted back to her spooky crap, is what I call it. But that's where we are with that.
Yeah.
Firstly, before we get on to what we were going to speak about with Bianca,
Mhm.
how do you feel about this match and how they've built it up, and result wise, what are you expecting?
Well, obviously, I expect Bianca to leave with the championship. I'm sure Alexa's going to do something really crazy to obviously further things with her. And I don't even know what we're calling the Bray Wyatt situation right now. I don't know. But I think that that's going to be furthered. There's no way Bianca's losing this match. I mean, there just isn't, for a few reasons. I think what we saw during the Bray Wyatt Fiend days is that Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, and championships don't work well together.
Yeah.
They just don't. And such is the case for Alexa. You know, anybody associated with that at this point, you don't need a championship. A championship does you no good. So I think, if anything, this isn't for Alexa to actually win the championship. I think it's actually to give Alexa some degree of grounding and give Bianca somebody to fight at the Rumble. Since she's champion and she won't be able to go in to win another Rumble, she needs to be able to defend against somebody. So I definitely see her walking out as champion, though I do think somehow Alexa will further her cause somehow with some sort of really odd thing that could happen. And maybe it happens after the match because she's upset that she lost. But yeah, I think Bianca walks away with the win on this one.
Alexa right now is kind of towing the line between the spooky stuff and still being herself. So
Right.
do you expect at the Rumble like a full conversion, like she returns to maybe what she was before? Or
Absolutely. And plus you've got Bray already there. You're gonna have the pitch black match, which who knows what that's going to entail.
yeah,
And God forbid if that happens before the Alexa Bianca match, then we already know what the deal is gonna be. There's gonna be some sort of involvement. But I think this is the match that moves character-wise Alexa to that dark place. Thankfully, I don't think she'll need the doll again, but I think she's going to fit right in with whatever this new Bray Wyatt, Uncle Howdy, Firefly thing is, which I think for her is good because plain Alexa just isn't working. Like
yeah,
we had no interest in that whatsoever. The therapy made no sense. You know, she barely got back onto winning ways, but that was because she was around Asuka and Bianca.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think we're going to see her go somewhere with this. I don't know where, but it should be interesting.
I think rightly, like you said, you know, she's been very vanilla since she's just been a face and
Yes.
stuff like that. I feel like I've always been a fan of the goddess character, like where she was
Mhm.
just a heel,
Yeah.
racking up titles when she came onto the
Yeah.
main roster. But yeah, the face stuff has never worked. It's annoying that now she's a heel, they've kind of reverted back to the spooky stuff.
Right.
But yeah, and again, with what you said, this with spooky characters in general, I always feel like they need to just run their spookiness throughout the main roster, and
Right.
then when they become champion, that has to kind of start leading to the end of the character, the spooky character.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind the Fiend winning the championship, but he won
Mhm.
it far too early into the Fiend's character. By the
Right.
time he wins it, we need to be like, all right, this has been going on for some time, so that
Mhm.
whenever the person defeats the Fiend,
Yeah.
now that's the end of their powers. Because how can a supernatural power lose?
Right. Right.
So I think that's what they, you know, when they're going to go back to whatever they're doing with Bray and maybe Alexa as well. They need to
Mhm.
kind of factor this in if they are going to resort to putting titles back on them.
Mhm.
Um, with Bianca Belair, I mean, this is a bit of my confusion now. Like you, I think she wins,
Yeah.
but if she beats someone that has supernatural powers,
Mhm.
what becomes of Alexa Bliss?
Well, I think that's the thing. I think it is beating Alexa that will force Alexa to submit to these powers, because it seems like she's still trying to fight it. You know
Okay,
what I
I see.
mean? So because she's trying to fight it, when you lose, now it's like, okay, let me just yield, because I probably could have won if I had that element on my side. I mean, think about it. She beat Randy Orton, right? But that was in full supernatural mode. She's still fighting it right now. So, take her to church and make her yield, okay? That's how it's going to go down. And once she decides, all right, I'm going to rock with you, Uncle Howdy, I'm going to rock with you, Bray, because she's still denying it. She's still fighting it. And that fight, I think, is going to ultimately cost her.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. So we're looking at a Bianca retaining. Obviously, on the night we're gonna have a women's rumble. I think from our conversations last week, I think one of the front runners we're all saying is probably Rhea Ripley. We would love to see Naomi in that rumble and win. But Bianca Belair marches on. Not sure if she'll be involved in anything February, Fastlane, or Elimination Chamber, whatever pay-per-view they do there. And then, of course, we're getting towards WrestleMania, where she won back this title. You think we're looking at a year-long reign? Do you think there is anyone that will actually defeat her at WrestleMania?
That's a great question. And I'm thinking it through, because on one hand, obviously, we want to see us get to Bianca and Rhea. That seems to make sense. But I think there are options. I mean, we could see Bianca and Becky once again at Mania, kind of the rematch to last year. That's an option. I don't know, other than really Rhea and Becky potentially challenging on the Raw side, I'm not really sure who else there would be. Part of me would love to see Bianca win again at Mania, A, so she can have a year-long reign, B, so she can still be undefeated at WrestleMania, which I think is a major move. And we're starting to move into streak territory if we get there, which I think is a good thing. Right now with Undertaker's streak gone, nobody really knows who's won the most matches outside of Taker, and nobody's really ever had that conversation around women, with the exception of maybe Charlotte Flair. So I think this would put Bianca into that elite status that I think she's worked all year to get at. So I don't think she should lose the title, because quite frankly, who's putting on better matches on a regular basis right now at a top tier level than Bianca Belair? Like, she really, really is. If we look at what she's done over the last year, from SummerSlam to Money in the Bank, like, these matches have been matches that are like very much top tier, and it continues to show her growth and rise. So I think that's the reward to that, is being able to go into Mania and successfully defend your women's championship.
Yeah. Like, I would love that. I don't know if they're gonna do it. This is my fear. Like, so Rhea Ripley, who is, I guess, the front runner to win the Royal Rumble, in many people's minds, she just hasn't done anything in the women's division over the year. Like you're saying, Bianca Belair's had great matches. Rhea Ripley hasn't done anything. Not to her detriment. She's still being booked. She's still on TV every week, and she is still being brilliant. But like, I don't know if just appearing in a Rumble and winning the Rumble is enough. Like, it's almost like you've come in the back door. Like, how did you get here? Sort of
I
thing.
agree.
Like, and I think I was saying as well last week, just because of the nature of the Elimination Chamber, I would much rather she won that. Like, a big dominating performance in that. And then you get on to to WrestleMania, if that's, the prize. I just like, I want Rhea to do good as well, but then I'm not sure now the aesthetic of Judgment Day with a champion in there as well. And I don't know, it's just not quite computing for me yet.
I just had an interesting thought. What if we're all being swerved and the real winner is Bayley?
I hear it.
And Bayley finally gets her massive WrestleMania match, which she has not had. And in that case, I don't want to sound hypocritical, but in that case, if we're thinking about massive moments, as much as Bianca deserves to go in as champion and leave as champion. Bayley has not had her WrestleMania moment.
Yeah.
And if Bayley is to have a WrestleMania moment, it only stands to make sense that it happens against Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
So more than Rhea, I think I'm liking this idea of Bayley potentially winning the Rumble and getting that shot and finding a way, because she doesn't have a win over Bianca Belair at this point. So it almost seems like that would be the move.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think that could almost as well pump some life into Damage Control.
Totally.
Because they've became tag team champions. They've defended it sometimes. I can't remember the last time they've defended that title.
Right. I don't either.
And their leader, Bayley, like you just said, she's taken some high profile losses. She beat Becky Lynch, was it? But she must have cheated or done something funny.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But and now this cage match that they're gonna have was obviously proposed by Becky Lynch, scrapped from last night's show. I assume when they do have the rematch, Becky probably wins. So this could be like her win to almost, eradicate all these losses and stuff. The big Royal Rumble win, and then move on to WrestleMania and beat Bianca. I like it, to be fair. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. It makes sense. Bianca has had an amazing title reign. I don't think anybody could be mad at a Bayley coming in there, because to your point, she didn't come through the back door. She worked hard. She gave us a great moment with her return at SummerSlam. They were involved in War Games. I mean, like, there are a lot of spaces where you could say Bayley deserves to be the Raw Women's Champion, specifically at WrestleMania, more so than Rhea. Because Rhea has been, and I don't know how to say this. So let me say this very carefully. Rhea has been the heavy for her whole crew Judgment Day, right?
Yeah.
So if you've been the heavy and they've been showing you body slamming men, standing up to Solo Sikoa, all of this type of thing, how then do you look going to, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when China became the women's champion. We all went, so who could possibly be her competition if she's been beating up all of these guys? And so I think even more so now, that's kind of that feeling that they have booked Rhea in such a way where you make it look like Rhea can absolutely stand toe-to-toe with any man on the roster. So if that's the case, why then have her only fight women if she's only been standing up to men?
Yeah, I hear it. It makes sense.
So there's that.
Yeah. She is a conundrum because, I said, she has been being booked very well, very entertaining. Yes. It's just a case of if she comes here now, they're almost gonna have to kind of build her up. She wins the Royal Rumble, let's say. They're gonna have to almost build her up against people, like you're rightly saying, that, well, she should be able to beat these people anyway, these women anyway.
Right.
So, and then does she then go into WrestleMania and completely slay Bianca Belair?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Bianca Belair is pretty much, sold as, the strongest and all that kind of stuff as well. So, it is a difficult one. But Bayley, I completely hear, like you're saying. I think if, pretty much has been a bit of a pattern where Bianca has lost or found difficulty, it has been against the 4 horsewomen. So Bayley is another one that could, cause her some trouble and go on to win that title. And I think Bianca can maybe take a bit of a step away from the championship as well.
Which it wouldn't hurt her. She's got some big things happening with the upcoming reality show, and all other sorts of endorsements that she has. It could even lead to her perhaps heading, at least for a small, into the movie space, which I know is something she's interested in. And then obviously take that time off, come back around SummerSlam and pick right back up where she left off. She's at that spot right now. Not that we're tired of her. We're not. But I think... Plus, I think going away in the strangest of ways, we've talked before on this show about her and her promo skills and the like. And I still think that that's one of those things that we're kind of still, okay, all right. You know,
Yeah.
she's not had a promo where we're like, that's the one. It's never happened. We've been
Yeah.
far more impressed with, you know, she's kind, she's nice, she's athletic, she gets it done in the ring. She does great interviews outside of the sport, you know, but like in the ring, you know, So
Yeah.
maybe time away gives her the opportunity, you know, when she's on sets and things like that, to be able to really find that particular space and come back with something special. But that also depends on, again, who she's lined up with at WrestleMania. If it's Rhea, I don't want to see her go away. If it's Bayley and Bayley gets to win, let's give that some time and let that breathe.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. And to your point with her promos and everything like that, she speaks very well. It's just
Yes.
content. It's just it's very samey. Like obviously
Right.
phrase, which probably drives it down that way anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I think a lot of people online have spoken about her falling into this whole, you know, lol, Bianca wins, Cena wins. It's just like it's becoming too repetitive. So, you know,
Mhm.
it's almost in a way like slow her down, especially like for me, if you're gonna have such a long title reign, there needs to be, like we see with Roman, like a bit of complexity in the character,
Yes.
moving parts around her. Like no matter what has happened with Bianca, whether it was her feuding with Sasha to become champion, stuff with Becky Lynch all throughout last year and stuff like that, the person at the core, Bianca Belair, has remained the same.
Mhm.
Like we haven't had any crisis of confidence, any change in attitude, really. Like,
Right.
yeah, she gets mad, but like then she returns back to happy-go-lucky, swinging her hair and all sorts.
Right.
Like, I need that change. What I really want is NXT Bianca Belair. That's what I really
That
want.
part.
I
Yeah.
want Mean Girl Bianca Belair. If definitely she's
Mhm.
gonna return after some time. But I don't know. I think there's just so much going right for this current iteration of her character, maybe with young
Yeah.
children and stuff as well, that
Mhm.
they probably don't turn her heel or anything in the meantime.
You mentioned Cena. Like Cena, she's making them too much money
Yeah.
for them to pull that particular trigger, which I understand. You know, I get it. So to that end, I think there has to be a way to find this aggressive piece that we can add to her character that still keeps her in love with people and people in love with her. There's got to be a way.
Yeah, there's definitely
Yeah.
got to be like a little switch at least that she can
Yeah.
turn, and yeah, we get that a bit of a
Mhm.
adjusted character.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going well for, you know, the Black Stars on WWE programming. I
Mhm.
think specifically we wanted to talk about today with Raw 30, the impact of Black wrestlers over the last 30 years,
Mhm.
especially in the WWE, especially on Raw.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, they jump between whatever show they like.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's the impact of Black wrestlers in WWE especially. And I think with the men, what I had noticed, like obviously we've now, especially in the last few years, we've had a lot of black male champions been popping
Yeah.
up with Kofi and Biggie
Mhm.
and Lashley and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what, the first thing that came to my head, bar Kofi,
Mhm.
these other guys won this on TV. They won it on Raw. They never
Correct.
won it on pay-per-view or anything like that.
That's right.
And I don't know, am I supposed to feel a way about that? That it never happened on the bigger stage? It happened on TV? Like, what do you think?
Well, it's you could argue a couple of things. On one hand, the pay-per-view concept is supposed to have this elite status to it, but in terms of eyes that see the product, more people watch the weekly product than
True.
actually watch the pay-per-view. So I think there's a lot to be said for the opportunity to win the championship on Raw. I think where it's problematic is when those folks and those moments aren't highlighted on a space like Raw 30, where, for instance, last night we did get to see, you know, they mentioned Big E's win, which was kind of cool, you know, and they've mentioned like a small thing here and a small thing there. But by and large, when you think about what the African American wrestler has meant to the history of Monday Night Raw, I don't know that it was well represented last night on Raw as 30. I don't. And part of the challenge could be you have 30 years of moments that you're trying to capture. You know, did they decide to make this too top heavy with legends and that type of thing that they didn't have a chance to really talk about and showcase? Like they showed moments like Mark Henry with Mae Young, right?
Yeah.
Like give Mark Henry more credit than Mae Young. I mean, he was
Yeah.
involved in more things on Monday Night Raw than Mae Young, and there were more people. Like this is one thing, and I don't want to jump the gun too much, but it also became clear to me, and I know we've got new people and creative and things like that, but certain things are still the same, unfortunately, and that is if somebody is not in the good graces of the WWE, then we're not going to acknowledge their presence or their impact. You know, so we saw a number of names that were mentioned that are currently not in WWE, you know, from Chris Jericho to the Big Show to Christian and all those folks. But then there were some clear names that have contributed very much so to the history of Monday Night Raw that were not mentioned at all.
Yeah.
You know, if you watched Raw last night, you saw Charlotte Flair's promo where she talked about and she gave credit to all of these women that she fought to help make her champion. She forgot an obvious one who she probably won 3 or 4 championships from.
I was just gonna say.
Like we're not calling you 14-time champion without a Sasha Banks.
Yeah.
You know, so that kind of thing is of concern. So to answer your question, I find it significant that these folks would win these championships on the longest running episodic television show in history. I just wish that that was acknowledged as much as some of the other things were acknowledged.
Yeah, definitely. The Charlotte Flair thing, I was literally sitting there thinking as she was doing her promo, especially when she's become Raw Women's Champion.
Right.
I'm pretty confident in saying, you know, the majority of those are against Sasha Banks.
Absolutely.
So how come, you guys couldn't have mentioned her? Even, you know, it's weird because even today she doesn't answer to Sasha Banks. So what would have saying Sasha Banks even meant? Because it's not, you know, in kayfabe, it's not Mercedes Moné, it's someone different.
Right. Exactly.
So, like, you could have said Sasha Banks.
Yeah.
As well as, you know, the men, obviously, we saw the Godfather, we saw Ron Simmons, Teddy Long, and I'm just, it's all like
Teddy Long was a SmackDown guy.
And he was a SmackDown guy. Yeah. I just felt like, this is all kind of comedy stuff. Yeah. And it's like we're not really showing the main impact. But then I thought, okay, but I'm going into my own memory now. Like, were these guys just always booked in these positions? Were they just never really booked in anything serious or a big enough moment to kind of draw back on?
So it's funny that you mentioned that. And again, you know, when you start talking about the history of Monday Night Raw, one of the first major names from an African-American perspective to impact Monday Night Raw was a guy named Ahmed Johnson, right? Like, folks don't talk about him. Ahmed Johnson, and this was a startling fact when I realized this, was the first African-American singles champion in WWE history. Like, that's like, wait, really? We always think about The Rock, but you know, Ahmed won the Intercontinental Championship against Goldust at a pay-per-view, and was a big deal on Monday Night Raw to the point where he was actually main eventing pay-per-views alongside Shawn Michaels, right? So you're thinking 95, 96, that's a really big deal. No mention of him, like he never existed in WWE. I mean, the war he had with Goldust was crazy. They really, some of the things that they did in that war, they could never do today. Like it just, people would have a fit, right? It'd be crazy. But you know, you got Ahmed. I mean, you think about what the Nation of Domination meant in Monday Night Raw. And again, some of those promos, when you go back and hear the promos that Farouk cut, you know, asking why have there been no black champions? And like those things now are like, holy cow. Taboo. And people were so programmed to boo him back then, which was crazy. But I mean, you know, obviously we talk about The Rock, and to your point, a lot of folks that were on the show last night were in the backstage segment. I mean, Ron Simmons did way more than just host a backstage segment with the Bar. I mean, from the acolytes, as dominant as they were, to the APA, to what he did as Farouk, to, the Nation. He had a significant role on Monday Night Raw as a champion.
Yeah.
So these kinds of things. And then we didn't even get into the women, at all. But besides the fact that the cage match was promoted and didn't happen, there was literally no mention of the women. To think that Alundra Blaze, who had her matches with Bull Nakano, being really the first women's champion there on Raw before she left, like all of that was forgotten. And then you think about people like Jacqueline and Jazz, who were all women's champions on Raw during that area. Jazz won her women's title on Raw, right? Like these kinds of things were completely glossed over, but yet they were very, very significant. I mean, before we had Bianca Belair, winning and soon hopefully to be defending the women's championship, you had Jazz successfully defending against Trish Stratus.
Yeah.
Like that's major, so there were a lot of contributions to Monday Night Raw from African-American wrestlers. And even if we get current, obviously you have the New Day, which they mentioned more of the Big E win, but Kofi is a multiple-time tag team champion, multiple-time intercontinental champion. That program that he had with CM Punk, when they were on, and Randy Orton, that program with Randy Orton, where he was ultimately leading to that big Rumble Madison Square Garden title match. I mean, it was significant. They were major moments, Shelton Benjamin, another big part. And then some might laugh at this, but R-Truth in the last 4 to 5 years with what he did with that 24/7 championship, the level for folks who love entertainment, was there any greater entertainment value than R-Truth?
Yeah.
So and even in his moment where he went bad and was teaming with The Miz, they main evented that Survivor Series against John Cena and The Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's definitely been a strong contribution from African-American wrestlers to Monday Night Raw that certainly seemed like it was overlooked when you watched Raw as 30. I mean, yeah, we focus on DX. Can't deny that. Can't deny Austin. And everybody talks about The Rock, but our contribution was bigger than The Rock.
Yeah. I think for me, you mentioned DX there. Like, I'm a big Triple H fan.
Yes.
But this is the stuff that people complain about Triple H about, like putting himself, putting his group front and center, their promo and stuff, although entertaining, it was very long.
Yes.
And then it's like when you see it led to, the six-man tag match. There was also another match that Bianca Belair and Sonya Deville had pretty much a random match.
Yes.
And you got rid of an advertised cage match for these segments. Couldn't DX have introduced one of this match, the cage match or something? Like, I just feel like, and we all know this, WWE, like, they'll show us everything, and we know, like, you've just nicely reeled off loads of moments from our community. If it's not how they want it to be told, it's revisionist history. Like, we will tell you and we will remind you of what we want to remind you of, and who we want you to remember. And everything else, it didn't happen.
It's crazy because, to your point, the Godfather being relegated to the bouncer for the APA last night. This guy was more over during his heyday in Raw. I mean, as the Godfather, and then you had D'Lo Brown. Like, you had these guys who literally people came out to see. They had signs. They were cheering for. Now, you might not be able to say most of those cheers now, but they were they were a big deal during the heyday of the Attitude Era. And I think that's the unfortunate thing in all of this, is that those people, that history, those contributions, it's as though they didn't exist. And I think that's the unfortunate part. If, to me, 30 years is a lot to encapsulate in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so it would have made more sense if they had done maybe it over a 2 week period, a part 1 and a part 2, like something like that. Because you're trying to grab 30 years of history, it would give things time. I mean, you know, I just, you could, in terms of saving time, why did we start the show with Hulk Hogan?
Oh my God, tell me about it.
Like I watched that and I went, oh, is this the kind of night we're gonna have? I mean,
it
like,
really set the tone badly, you know.
Set the tone. And the unfortunate part about that is Hulk Hogan wasn't even a big figure on Raw.
That's true.
When Raw started, Hogan was on his way to WCW.
Yeah.
You
and
know,
then when he returned, he was on like SmackDown more than anything.
Right. He was on SmackDown. He showed up on Raw, you know, the night after that Mania, and everybody cheered for him for 15 minutes, you know, and then all of that led to ultimately a title match. But it was like, we're starting with Hulk. Now on SmackDown, would have made more sense.
Yeah.
On Raw, not so much. And so it's like these kinds of moments that we could have done without to give us more of an opportunity to appreciate some of the other people and some of the other things that that were happening. And again, you know, African-American contribution, not really shown. The female contribution, not really shown. This was not a good move.
Yeah, I think, you know, more so, obviously, we spoke about our own people. The women's one just, it really stumped me because, like, I saw, obviously, Brie Bella and Nikki Bella, they put out like a video, I think they were on Instagram Live, and they had actually went to Philadelphia, so the story goes, and they they had flown in for the event, and then they found out how the women were set to be used, and they said, we're not doing this. We're not going to be part of this. Yeah, that's as the story goes. So they were actually in Philadelphia when they were on that live, maybe in their hotel or something like that. So, and even, you know, as per their adverts, even though their advertised match didn't even come to fruition, no Lita, no Trish. Like, I don't understand how you put together a 30 show and these core bits. You lot drum into our heads that Trish and Lita was like the first ever female main event on Raw, this, that, and the other. Yeah, it makes no sense how you've missed out these core pieces of the history of the show.
It makes me wonder, is this the result of the absence of Stephanie McMahon?
It's a good point. It is a good point.
Because Stephanie certainly historically had been known as the one to really help push the women's movement. And I'm sure she would have had something to say like, okay, so where are the women? So now the question is, who's speaking up for women in WWE? You know, that's a real concern. And you could make the argument again, who's speaking up for folks who look like us in the WWE at this point? It makes you ask a lot of questions, because for the moments that were created last night, and there were moments, the blaring omissions are also things that you're like, wait, is this what we're doing? For a people group that certainly contributed so much to Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. It's very weird. It's very weird. But, you know, they celebrated their 30 years in some style, I guess. And as we were talking about our own people, black people, and then females, we'll move over to the other side with AEW, and we'll talk about a black female over there, Jade Cargill, approaching her 50th. I guess it's her 50th match, as well as, you know, possible win. Incredible. We've literally seen her whole career play out on TV.
Literally.
Who are we expecting for this 50th opponent? And what do you think are the plans now that we are at the sacred 50? How much longer is this going to last?
You know, that's a great question. In terms of who should be there for number 50, I think we are at the point now that we are a year into her title reign, now that we are almost at the 50 win mark, we have to start looking at, okay, so who has she fought in these 50 matches that we go, okay, that was a major opponent.
Mm.
Okay, that one really raised her game. And there aren't a lot. I mean, you can look at obviously Ruby Soho, just from an experience standpoint. Perhaps the match with Athena, even though I felt like that was only one match and it was less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, why we didn't do more with that, I don't know. Other than that, in terms of people with great experience and great skill, I'm not really sure. So I think AEW has drawn this line, this invisible line between the TBS champion and the world champion and the folks who fight for those titles. It seems like there's only a small handful of folks that ever fight for the women's championship. I
yeah.
think one of those folks ends up having to fight Jade Cargill for number 50 for us to be able to go, okay, these are 50 legitimate wins, or at least you have advanced and progressed to this particular level for match number 50. It cannot be against somebody who she should have fought on Dark, you know. And I'll say this, the tag match that they had on Rampage Friday, Jade had this look on her face, and the commentators even mentioned it. Like, it almost looked like the match was beneath her. And it was just kind of like, okay, so if we have her at that level, then let's put somebody against her that's at her level or greater than her level. At this point, and I know they won't do this for 50, but they have to do it soon. At some point, we've got to see her and Britt Baker.
We've been today. We have been like, I was just thinking, because it seems as if they're going to turn Britt Baker and Jamie face, or at least more face tendencies than a heel.
Sure.
Since Saraya is the one that looks to have turned heel.
Right.
And like, they could easily set up something where Britt is like, I want a title as well. I want me and Jamie to have titles together. Like,
Yes.
I think Britt might just be, the big high profile person. Now, again, we might talk about the match quality that could come out of it. But yeah, I'm trying to think of who else are like faces in that division of the women's championship. Like, you kind of, fairly split them.
Yeah.
If it's not Britt, Shida. And hasn't she faced Shida already?
I don't think she has.
She hasn't? Okay.
Maybe Rio, but not Shida.
Okay. So yeah. I think definitely Britt is an option then. Yeah, I'm with you. It's gotta be Britt.
It has to be Britt. I mean, Britt has declared herself as face of the division. But you could argue the face of EW really has been Jade Cargill. So the story, right? Completely right. It makes all the sense in the world. Question is, will they pull the trigger? And I just don't want to see that announced that's going to happen tomorrow night, right? Like, it needs to have a build up to it. It needs to be a pay-per-view match. It's going to be for Britt. Like, that's really the two beasts of the division, really for the length of the AEW for us. So to me, that's what 50, and whether or not she's 50, I don't know. But it's worth seeing. It's finally challenge go, she might actually lose.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. I just Jade Cargill. It's once we get over this hill, where do you think we can now kind of move on to? Or do you think we are seeing her get into world championship division, like you said, this year? Will that happen in 2023, you reckon?
The hard part is trying to predict the trajectory of the EW division. Hard to predict because they don't give us much in long-term storytelling with the women, more so with the men than with the women. So it's like, except for, I mean, like the Saraya thing is something that they're actually taking their time with right now. But the other things have just been, boom, here you go, So I think she has to end up in the world title division before the end of the year. I don't think there's any more she can do at the TBS championship. She's beaten everybody they've put in front of her. and they don't want the TBS championship to appear larger than the world championship.
Yeah.
So for her to be that one, she's got to go after the world title. And so, I think, quite frankly, so here's my prediction. I think Britt Baker should be number 50. I think Jade should win. But then I don't think she should get to 60. Or maybe if she does, here's the thing. The person who should beat the streak is Willow Nightingale.
Yes.
She should do it. I know they've had matches before, but now Willow is fully signed. Willow, she's got some experience behind her. She's done some things with Ruby, et cetera, et cetera. Willow Nightingale should be the one to be able to take that title off of her. And now I think there are people who you would say, okay, this would make an interesting match with Willow. This one would be, and now we could make the TBS championship far more competitive. But right now it's not even competitive because Jade is so dominant. Yeah. So I think Willow's got to be the one to do it and let this war between Jade and Britt ultimately lead into the world title picture.
Yeah. Again, Willow is someone I've always vouched for to be the victor here. If it wasn't going to be Statlander was my first choice. Statlander got injured. I said Willow Nightingale from there. Again, people will say, "Oh, it's the choice. You've chosen the black person," but I think this is the thing, especially like you've just broken it down. Willow is almost. This is the secondary title, in it. So this is the top, I guess, of that second division. Yes. So if to me, if it's not Willow that wins it, that beats Jade, maybe a Ruby Soho, or it's still somebody of that ilk.
Right.
And I think especially because of the size of Jade, Willow being, physically believable that she could overcome. I don't believe that, Ruby or, maybe Athena in this new iteration where she's a lot more violent could do something. But there's a lot of people there. And that's probably why I said first time round, that Statlander would be a good, matchup. There isn't a lot of other women that, you would say, even I'm thinking of some of the Japanese girls that they've got signed. Some of them are, like you say, above the TBS title in terms of ability and where they are with their development.
Yeah.
Willow is a perfect candidate.
Yes, she is. She's
a perfect candidate to dethrone Jade.
She really is. And it makes sense. It makes sense all the way around, So I hope that they'd pull the trigger with that, especially with the way they've been building Willow. That tag match that she had a couple of weeks ago, bloody, violent, like those kinds of things. That's the kind of person that needs to fight Jade that would make us go, oh, this is going to be, because that version of Willow is different than who Jade fought before.
Exactly.
Much different.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. And last but not least, obviously we've still got this the Red Velvet thing kind of hanging over Jade as well. Where do you see that going? Do you think do you think she could be the 50th challenger?
Now she could be the 50th challenger. I think the story there goes back to Jade's first match, where they were on opposite sides in that mixed tag. And, it could certainly go back there. They were rivals, all of that type of thing. It's another thing that makes sense. I don't know if it is large enough on the marquee, but then again, I don't know how big they want to make match 50, right? If you really want to make it big, then you got to go Britt. If it's just another thing you want to do to fill up a space on Dynamite, and I don't want to minimize it when I say that, but you get what I mean, then I think they go with Red Velvet, and I think Jade wins. Like, I don't think there's a way, there's not a baddie right now that can beat her, or an ex-baddie that can beat her. Sorry, Kiera Hogan. Like, there's just not. Yeah. So, she could have that match and have her 50th, and then progress to eventually, because she's got to have somebody to fight the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Maybe they save Britt for that.
Yeah, they've got Revolution, probably late Feb or early March.
Yeah.
And then they have obviously their TV specials. I'm thinking the next one might be maybe the St. Patrick's Day one.
Yeah, I think that'll end up coming after Revolution. Because Revolution's going to be like top of March or something.
Okay, so that's probably where, especially if you're getting the 50th match there, then it's got to be a Britt Baker, like you rightly said.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess that makes sense and kind of brings us full circle to today's show. You guys are watching WrstlXtra right here on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. You can follow myself, Mex, at WrestleManiac UK on most places. It's only Instagram where it changes, WrestleManiac.uk. Gerard, do you want to tell the people where they can find you?
Certainly, you can find me at Bonnerfied on all of the platforms. You can check me out there at Southern Honor Wrestling doing commentary. Southern Honor you can find on IWTV. Battle Slam you can find on Fight TV. Championship District Wrestling you can find on YouTube. And breaking news, the Nightmare Factory's Student Showcase number 8. I'm doing commentary on that, and that's actually debuting 30 minutes from right now. So, yeah. So by the time everybody else sees the rest of this, if you're not watching it live, it'll be out there on YouTube on the Nightmare Factory YouTube channel. And I think Cody might post it as well. So check that out. We're doing commentary there. And again, follow us at all things Bonnerfied. And you can check out our merch at prowrestlingtees.com/Bonnerfied.
I need as many plugs as you.
Oh, you're doing plenty. You're doing plenty.
I need more. Thanks, Gerard. Guys, we'll be back same time next week. See you then.